Lou Costello performed his radio show just hours after his baby son drowned, and his daughter finally reveals what really happened that tragic night, 64 years after Lou Costello died. His daughter Chris is still fighting to protect the truth about her father. She wrote a book. She gave countless interviews. She corrected lies that Hollywood spread about the man who made millions laugh. But the real story isn't about fame or comedy routines. It's about unimaginable tragedy, a father's broken heart, and the moment that changed everything. Chris Costello has spent decades making sure people know who her dad really was behind the laughs. And what she's revealed will make you see Lou Costello in a completely different light. Let me take you back to November 4th, 1943. Lou Costello was at the height of his fame. He and his partner Bud Abbott were the biggest comedy duo in America. Their movies were box office gold. Their radio show attracted millions of listeners every week. They just finished a grueling winter tour performing for soldiers at army bases across the country. Lou was exhausted but excited. That night he was scheduled to do their regular radio broadcast. But this time would be special. His baby son, Lou Jr., would be awake to hear his daddy's voice on the radio for the very first time. Lou Jr. was just 2 days away from his first birthday. He was a happy, healthy baby who brought joy to the Costello household. Lou adored this little boy. He had 3 daughters already, Patricia, Carol, and later Chris would be born. But Lou Jr. was his only son, his namesake, the child who would carry on the family name. Lou was a typical Italian Catholic father who was especially devoted to family. He'd moved his own mother from New Jersey to California just to be near her. He was the kind of dad who would let his daughters sit on his lap and pretend to drive the car. He was generous and loving and completely devoted to his kids. That afternoon, Lou Jr. was playing in his playpen near the family swimming pool. The nanny was watching him, or at least she was supposed to be watching him. But something happened. Nobody noticed when the baby worked loose the slats on his playpen. Nobody saw him crawl out. Nobody realized he was heading toward the pool. And nobody heard him fall into the water. By the time anyone discovered what happened, it was too late. Lou Costello Jr. drowned in his own backyard swimming pool. He was 11 months old. 2 days short of his first birthday, Lou was at the NBC studio preparing for that night's radio show when he got the news. Imagine that moment. You're getting ready to perform comedy for millions of people. You're excited because your baby son will hear you for the first time. And then someone tells you that baby is dead, drowned, gone. Your whole world shatters in an instant. Everything you thought mattered suddenly means nothing. The show you were excited about becomes meaningless. The fame and success feel hollow. All you can think about is the son you'll never hold again. The first birthday party that will never happen. The life that ended before it really began. Most people would have canceled the show. Most people would have run home to be with their family. Most people would have collapsed under the weight of such devastating news. But Lou Costello wasn't most people. He had to make a decision in that moment that would define him forever. Cancel the broadcast and disappoint millions of listeners, or go on stage and perform comedy while his heart was breaking. Lou made a choice that still amazes people today. He decided to do the show. Before going on air, Lou said something that reveals everything about his character. He said wherever his son was that night, he wanted him to hear his father on the radio. Think about that. His baby had just died, and Lou believed somehow, somewhere, his son's spirit could still hear him. So he would perform. He would make people laugh. He would do his job even though every cell in his body was screaming in agony. Because that's what performers do. The show must go on. Lou went out there and performed. He did the comedy bits. He delivered the lines. He made the audience laugh. Nobody listening at home had any idea what had just happened. They heard the same funny Lou Costello they always heard. But inside, he was dying. Every joke was torture. Every laugh felt wrong. Every second on that stage took more strength than anything he'd ever done in his life. When the show finally ended, Bud Abbott stepped up to the microphone. He explained to the audience what had happened. He told them about Lou Jr.'s death. He praised Lou for epitomizing the phrase "the show must go on." Only then did people realize what they'd just witnessed. A father performing comedy hours after losing his child. It's one of the most heartbreaking and heroic moments in entertainment history. Chris Costello was born 6 years after her brother's death. She never met Lou Jr., but his death shaped her entire family. She grew up in a house haunted by the tragedy of a baby who drowned before his first birthday. Her father carried that pain for the rest of his life. In 1947, Lou did something remarkable to honor his lost son. He opened the Lou Costello Jr. Youth Foundation. It was a recreation center in East Los Angeles designed to help underprivileged kids. It had a baseball field and swimming pool. It offered programs and activities for children who had nothing. Lou and Bud went on tours specifically to raise money for this foundation. They performed show after show, donating the proceeds to build and maintain the center. Lou poured his grief into helping other people's children. If he couldn't save his own son, at least he could give other kids a safe place to play and grow. The center still operates today, more than 75 years later. It's called the Lou Costello Jr. Youth Recreation Center. It's Lou's lasting legacy beyond the movies and comedy routines. It's proof that he channeled his tragedy into something positive that still helps kids today. Chris was only 11 years old when her father died in 1959. Lou suffered a heart attack 3 days before his 53rd birthday. His heart, weakened by rheumatic fever years earlier and broken by the loss of his son, simply gave out. 9 months after Lou died, Chris's mother had passed away too. Her heart was also broken. She couldn't live without her husband. So at age 12, Chris had lost both parents. She was orphaned along with her older sisters. They had to grow up without the famous father who made the world laugh. For years after Lou's death, Hollywood told stories about him that weren't true. In 1977, a book called Bud and Lou was published. It was supposed to be about Abbott and Costello's partnership. But according to Chris, the book was full of lies and inaccuracies. Then in 1978, they made a TV movie based on that book. It starred Harvey Korman and Buddy Hackett. Both the Abbott and Costello families were devastated by how their fathers were portrayed. The movie suggested Abbott and Costello died broke and bitter enemies. None of that was true. Chris remembers her sister Carol calling the author Bob Thomas on the phone. Carol demanded to know how he could write such blatant lies about their father. She was furious that someone would publish false information and present it as fact. But the damage was done. Millions of people saw that movie and believed the lies. They thought Lou Costello and Bud Abbott hated each other. They thought both men lost their fortunes. They thought the partnership ended badly. None of it was true. But once something is in a book or movie, it becomes part of history whether it's accurate or not. That's why Chris decided to write her own book. In 1981, she published Lou's on First. It took her 3 years to research and write. She interviewed over 100 people who knew her father and Bud Abbott. She dug through family records and personal letters. She collected photos and memories. She wanted to tell the real story of Lou Costello, not the Hollywood version, not the sensationalized lies. The truth about a man who was a great comedian, but also a great humanitarian. A man who suffered unimaginable tragedy, but kept making people laugh. A man who was a devoted father, a generous friend, and someone who believed money should be used to help others. Chris reveals in her book and interviews what Lou was really like at home. He wasn't the wild pratfall character people saw on screen. When he came home after a long day at the studio, he was just Dad. He was quiet. He read the newspaper and smoked cigars. He didn't need to be the center of attention all the time, but when he was around kids, the performer would come out. Chris tells a story about bringing a friend home from school. The friend saw Lou and got nervous. Lou put down his cigar and newspaper and started walking toward her. The girl backed up, intimidated by the famous comedian. Then suddenly Lou did a pratfall right into the wall. The girl erupted in laughter. That was Lou. He knew how to make kids feel comfortable and happy. Lou was strict about certain things. He insisted their daughters have good manners, show respect, and take school seriously. One time one of Chris's sisters ditched school. Lou was planning to give her a car for graduation. When he found out she skipped class, he sent the car back. No reward for bad behavior. He could be very giving, but he had standards. He wanted his daughters to be responsible people who valued education and hard work. He'd come from nothing and made himself into a star through talent and determination. He expected his kids to have that same work ethic. Chris also confirmed something important about her father's relationship with Bud Abbott. Despite what the movie suggested, they were friends until the end. Yes, they had disagreements. Yes, they fought about money and billing and creative decisions. But they were together for 21 years. You don't stay partners that long if you hate each other. Chris remembers seeing Bud after her father died. They were sitting in the living room when an Abbott and Costello show came on TV. Bud's eyes filled with tears. He looked at Chris and said simply, "I just miss my buddy." That's the truth. Not hatred, not bitterness, Just a man missing his friend and partner of 2 decades. The Abbott and Costello partnership ended in 1957, but it wasn't a hostile breakup. Both men agreed the time had come. Their popularity had waned from overexposure. The same routines that made them famous had been done too many times. Audiences wanted something new, so they decided to go their separate ways. Lou made some solo TV appearances and starred in one final film. He was working on new projects when his heart gave out in 1959. Chris has spent her entire adult life protecting her father's legacy. She formed Abbott and Costello Enterprises with the Abbott family. Together they control the rights to the famous Who's on First routine. They license Abbott and Costello products and memorabilia. They've made sure that pirates and con artists can't exploit their father's work. Chris says it's proof that heirs of celebrities can work together if they put aside differences and focus on honoring their parents properly. Many celebrity families fight amongst themselves, but the Costellos and Abbotts united to preserve their father's legacy the right way. In 2023, Chris released an audiobook version of Lou's On First. She narrates it herself, using the voice her father helped create. She wanted people to hear the story directly from her. No more middlemen. No more inaccurate biographies written by strangers who never knew Lou. Just his daughter telling the truth about a man who was more than just a comedian. He was a father who performed through unbearable grief. He was a humanitarian who built a recreation center for poor kids. He was a husband who adored his wife. He was a friend who stayed loyal to his partner. He was a son who moved his mother across the country just to be near her. Chris emphasizes one thing above all else. She wants people to remember Lou Costello as more than a great comedian. Yes, he was hilarious. Yes, he created comedy routines that are still famous today. Yes, he made millions of people laugh during some of America's darkest years. But his real legacy is what he did with his fame. He used his success to help others. He built the youth center that still operates today. He performed for soldiers during World War II. He raised money for charity. He believed that wealth and fame came with responsibility to give back. That's the footprint he left on the world. That's what made him truly great. The story of Lou Costello performing his radio show hours after his son drowned is almost unbelievable. It shows a level of professionalism and strength that most people can't comprehend. But Chris confirms it really happened. That's not Hollywood exaggeration. That's not a dramatic interpretation. That's the truth about her father. He was a man who understood that sometimes you have to keep going even when your world is falling apart. Sometimes the show really must go on. Not because the show is more important than your grief, but because fulfilling your commitments and responsibilities is what honorable people do even in their darkest moments. Lou Costello died 64 years ago, but his daughter Chris continues fighting to make sure people know the truth. She corrects lies when she sees them. She shares accurate stories about her father's life. She preserves his legacy with dignity and honesty. And most importantly, she reminds people that Lou Costello was more than just the funny little guy who did Who's on First. He was a man who survived tragedy and turned his pain into purpose. He was someone who made people laugh while carrying unbearable sorrow. He was a humanitarian who believed in helping kids who had nothing. That's the truth his daughter has confirmed. And that's the Lou Costello we should all remember. Share this story if you think Lou Costello's strength on that tragic night deserves to be remembered.